This is the first time that I realized that something was going on. I was setting appointments for timeshare out of my own home and at a job, and I remember thinking that my phone's tapped. And that's not a big deal, well, at least that was my thought. I didn't think it was all that big of a deal. I figured, okay, my phone's tapped. They're checking to make sure that I'm a legitimate, got a legitimate business, which we did. We were completely clean. Or if they had an issue with us, I figured they'd come and talk with us. So I figured, just making sure I'm running a business out of my own home. They're just making sure that I'm not running some kind of a scam, which was cool. I had no problem with that. And then I had a couple of really unexplained hallucinations. And these weren't drug-induced hallucinations. These were a little bit beyond that level during this period. And I felt different. Those were the warning signs. At first, the voices that I would hear were not internal. They were external. And they would try and make it seem like they were coming from different locations. But at first, at the apartment that we were in, I started hearing them through the vents. And at that time, in the beginning, there were a variety of different things, but predominantly there were women coaxing me into masturbating, into sexual. They would like taunt me and tease me. I didn't realize it at the time, but what it was a setup to make me look like a pervert. They would get me all excited. They would go on and on without talking dirty to me and talking sexually to me and making these and just going on and on about it. And then I would like hear noises outside the window, and they would like play this little game, and I'd look out the window, and I'm sure I looked like a pervert to my neighbors, which then they could use to set me up to look like a pervert. And the fact that I was using drugs, they could say, oh, well, he's just having the window blind thing. See, this is something that people that use drugs will do, so they were able to go into that. In other words, they used what they actually did it, but they made it seem like the same thing that a typical drug user or somebody that was crazy would do. They were their masters at making their attacks look like something that somebody that was crazy would complain of. They would attack me in such a way that if I went to the authorities and explained to them what was going on, they would brush it off as either I'm crazy or not credible, or you were high, or something like that. A very clever way of disguising their attacks. So that went on for some time, but then at one point I remember, it was quite a nuisance. It was a problem. They were constantly badgering me about the girlfriend that I had at the time and saying all kinds of stuff about her and badgering me. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was already being gang stalked by groups of people, and I had no idea all this was going on around me. It was like getting ready for the big setup. I remember waking up one morning. I'd moved to a different location, to a better apartment, to a better condo, and I remember waking up and going into the bathroom, and the voices said, this time they were internal, and they told me to reach up and feel the top of your head, and I did, and there was blood on the top of my head. Fairly fresh blood, actually, if I remember correctly. It wasn't that dried out. And this is after waking up. And that's when the voices became unbearable. They became a living nightmare. I have some notes here to kind of help me along. They became constant, and they become loud. And they were set at distorted levels to actually cause aggravation, painful levels actually at times. The thing was it was a constant barrage of information that somebody that has not gone through it could never possibly understand. The way I have been able to explain it to people is, imagine somebody walking up to you that you don't know, and just some guy that's maybe 4 or 5 inches taller than you, leaning down on you and screaming in your ear, "Get the fuck out of my way," just as loud as he possibly can. Now imagine how you would cringe and get ready to defend yourself and everything that you'd go through for those few seconds. Now imagine those few seconds. Imagine instead of that lasting for a few seconds, imagine that lasting for a minute. That guy screaming at you like that. Okay, imagine how that would do to your nerves and to your psyche and to everything if that went on for a full minute. Then make it an hour. Then make it 2 hours. Then make it 3 hours. Then make it a day. Then make it a week. Then make it a month. After about 4 months of this, I thought for sure that this was, I didn't know what to think. I was flabbergasted that this was going on. It was just amazing. And there was a constant barrage of information, and there was so much information. They talked about so many different things. It would take me literally years to tell you all the things that they talked about because they never shut up. They never shut up. And they would go on about who they were and why they were doing it and how they were doing it, and constantly going over all these different possibilities and stuff. And in the beginning, it was pretty obvious. The only people that really have this kind of technology are some military, some government. The only people in the world that have this kind of technology are government. And the fact that the police are participating in the cover-up, obviously, it's government. And it's simple enough to figure out. However, with this barrage of information that they give you and brainwashing, and remember, this isn't something that just goes on and then stops. It's not like an obnoxious kid, like when your kid screams at you for a little while and becomes bad and you push them to your room and you feel bad. No. No one that's experienced this has experienced anything